Hello and welcome back to the Ecuador Insider Podcast. Jesse, Brandon, pleased to be back with you. It's been a little bit of a hiatus.
It's been a while, but we're back.
We're back.
Feels good to be back.
Does it?
It does for me.
Does it? Good. I'm glad it feels good to you.
Good. It's all about me, so. I mean, so that it's about you.
It's a little bit of an obligatory podcast. I think this might be one of the things I've done under the most distress.
Yeah.
It's like one of those hostage videos.
Yeah.
I'm like the guy reading from the paper that he was given.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been fed. The accommodations
Please
are
send
wonderful.
money right now. Anyways, good to be back with you. We, a lot of people have been wondering where we were.
Yeah, I mean, I was back in the States for a couple months.
Yeah, took a little break, which was nice.
Yeah. It was something, man. 2 months was a long time to be back there after being here for so long. And it's definitely some things that made me, be grateful for living here. I'll tell you that. Although it was refreshing in some ways to see friends and family.
Sure.
And stuff like that. Yeah, it's good to be back.
So now we're back in Vilcabamba, living through the end of the world.
Yeah, it sure kind of. There's been some stuff going on, huh?
As everybody is, I guess. Did you see today? I think it was like earlier today that Ukraine has now launched missiles into Russia.
That's what I heard, and they're making it a point to let everyone know that they're the ones that the U.S. gave them.
Right. After yesterday,
Yeah.
Biden gave a speech from the jungles of Brazil, apparently.
Oh, is that where he was?
I think so.
I saw him stumble off into the Amazon.
It was pretty funny.
Say hi, guys.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
pretty
I didn't listen to the speech.
No, I didn't either,
Oh.
but just to see this senile old man, trying to read, having a hard time reading and then wandering off into the jungle.
Yeah.
It was a nice backdrop.
Yeah.
I could do a pod with that backdrop.
Right,
That'd be
totally.
Nice. So we've got some forest fires here.
Oh, dude, there's a lot of places. They're in the States, they're here, they're in Canada, they're in South America. And for us here in Vilca, they're right here. We've got footage from the helicopters landing in the Coliseum right here, just dropping, coming over.
I was gonna say that seems like the logical place to land. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
today, multiple times today, they've been doing it.
Some years back when Rafael Correa came, they landed in the
No kidding.
Coliseo.
The kids ran down.
Yeah.
They ran down and they got video on
What were they doing? The helicopters?
I don't know. They didn't have the bucket today. So I think they kept going back that way and surveilling, I think. I don't know, just to kind of see.
Yeah, the smoke was definitely just as thick today as
this morning it was, yeah. Yeah, you can kind of see Mondongo now, but when we woke up this morning, you couldn't eat from my house right here. You couldn't even see Mondongo.
Yeah. No, up at my house, there's mountains that are not that far away that some mornings are just completely whited out.
Yeah.
How are your lungs holding up?
They're okay. Yeah. Not great, but it's been okay.
I'm doing better than I expected. We were in Loja. I think it was Saturday.
Oof. Yeah. Loja was
worse.
Yeah, Loja was rough. We were in there Saturday as well. We had to play soccer. They played soccer indoor. It was.
Oh, were you? You were probably. That's funny. We were probably next door. We were at the new high school there.
No kidding.
For Kirsten had a dance performance.
Yeah.
And then we saw all the kids going in for the soccer.
Yeah, we were right next door. Yeah, that was rough, man.
Yeah.
You think about it was right here. The fires peaked right up here in San Pedro, right in these mountains right up here. I have video from when the flames were right there, and then the winds changed. It sucks because you're seeing houses. You've seen some houses burn. You've seen animals, horses, cows burnt, and all kinds of wildlife that got trapped and burned, and it's devastation. I think they're over 10,000 acres, well over 10,000 acres burned now. It's almost burned all the way to Zamora.
No, it's weird, man. Definitely the weather stuff. I saw the government issued something I saw today or yesterday saying that 99% or something of these fires were started, they think, like, maliciously, or 95 or 90%.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Like maliciously, like
intentional. Maybe not maliciously.
yeah,
Sorry, intentionally.
I think because I think people are so used to burning. You know,
Yeah,
the
some
education
of them are definitely
around
that.
Yeah, I think a lot of them. Well, I mean, there's like 3 or 4 denuncias already of people with video of like these particular right now that are like, hey, we know the people that started these, and
yeah.
You know,
they have pretty. My understanding is legally there's some pretty stiff penalties for that actually.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I could be wrong, but they were right here, and then the winds changed and they blew them. You know, if the winds kept blowing this way, I don't know what would happen. It would come right through Vilcabamba. I don't know. Right. You know, like, right. And then they went the other way, and they went that way through Zamora, but they literally came up to here.
Yeah, it's been dry. I mean, this is the last. It's been hotter than I'm used to, drier than I'm used to. It's been strange.
Yeah, this is our 4th, like this whatever was this fall. What season is this?
Well, we should be in. We should have just started rainy season.
Right. So this is my 4th, but the first 2, it was raining in October.
Yeah, usually
the first 2. Yeah, it was raining in October. Then last year, we had some. It was drier. I think it still rained a little more than it did this year. Well, it definitely did. And then we had some of those fires last year, remember, around this time.
Yeah, the last 2 years have been
And then this year it's been, I mean, I can't remember the last day we've had.
No, I mean, I definitely remember when I was really doing deep dives on a lot of things, 2010, 11, 12, I remember reading that, you know, there's a plan for drought in South America, which 10 years later seems to be happening, 12 or 15 years later, whatever it's been. I mean, my wife's mother lives in Valencia, Spain. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you followed that.
No. What's going on there?
Dude, I mean...
It's drought?
No. Oh. Like, you know, the 10,000th once-in-a-lifetime weather event that we've had in the last 5 years globally.
They had one?
Yeah. So a lot of people died. Like, there was literally...
Really?
There was literally rivers. I mean, rivers is not an overstatement at all. There was literally rivers, like, through the city. Like cars and buses, like, floating down the street.
Wild.
Yeah, they got flooded, you know, flooded. I mean, like, really flooded. Probably, yeah, I mean, I saw houses, like,
that's crazy.
City houses, too, not like... You know, not like a country cabin.
Right.
Like, Valencia is a city. My wife kind of grew up there, actually, and yeah.
Dude, yeah.
And it was really, you know, some of the, you know, you see some of those videos that come out that show the radar, and, you know, it looks like there's some funny business going on for sure, yeah.
I mean, I saw videos from a few months ago. It was like in Saudi Arabia or somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing. There was like these anomaly type radar activity, and then all of a sudden they're getting floods in the desert.
In the desert.
It was odd.
It happened again more recently also.
Yeah.
Like within the last few weeks, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, I know, you know, talking to locals here, you know, people have told me like we always kind of have fires. They're just they're just more controlled. They're never this big. Nobody ever remembers anything like this. You know, for as long as they've been here.
I mean, I only go back to 2013, but it's always been routine here that right around like end of August, September, October, they're burning the fields. And it can be smoky because they're burning the fields. And then once in a while, something gets out of hand a little bit, and they come and they deal with it. That's every year, but yeah, the last 2 is not that.
This year, this has been rough, man. It's I mean, it almost at night, like when these were burning right over here, it felt like apocalyptic.
Dude, I mean, where I'm at, like I mean, the mountains were on fire, blazes, everywhere we walk, like it,
it feels apocalyptic, in a way. Totally. But then it's, you know, the cool part, you know, that I've seen since this has been going on the last week or so is the community. Like the community, I mean, for crying out loud, dude, we just went from like cartel, cartel scares to like this
Power outages.
to this little mini, like group, robbing gringos in town, to power outages, to freaking 10,000 acre forest fires. Like, what in the world? Like, it's nuts, dude. But the craziest part is, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow. I mean, up until the fires, which took a community effort, which is awesome. Like, there's so many people in this community that have come together to like put their resource, their time, their money, their skills to service, man. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Joel from the retreat has spearheaded a lot of that stuff. Alan, he started a GoFundMe, like people are really raising money and, focused on reforestation so that, already, ahead of time so that, that the right types of things are planted so these things don't, continue that way. But just to see the people come together like that, I mean, that's awesome. Like, people are dropping everything to be part of this, to help here. And you think about, this is coming off of, what do we have? 8 and 12 hour, or I don't know how many multiple hour blackouts a day for weeks or a couple months now it's been going on.
It's been a while.
And I think, and people ask me back in the States, like, how is it with all that? And it's weird, like, beyond the fire stuff, because now the smoke has definitely had some impact. There's definitely been some catastrophic damage. That's a little different, but the blackout piece before that, it was kind of like, it was like no big deal. Yeah. It was kind of, like it hurt some of the restaurants. I'll tell you that. It definitely impacted some of the restaurants in town.
I'd say tourism in general has been so down based on all the events you just mentioned.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right. And, but like day-to-day life, it didn't really change much from the power outage side. Now, the forest fires...
Something a little romantic about it.
Yeah, there was. There actually was.
Cruising through town with no
lights.
Total black.
Yeah, or at night I can sit out on the balcony and there's no...
Yeah,
it's
light
cool.
Pollution. Yeah.
Like, it's cool to see the lights, sometimes you see the mountain.
Especially when you're high up.
And you're up and it's... But then when there's not, you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No, I noticed too, just in the house, like the nervous system release.
Yeah.
When it's off, it's like I feel it. It's like, it's like there's a little like letting go that happens when the power goes out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. It feels, you're definitely more.
No, and a lot of this, grounded. I mean, people responded by buying those batteries that were like scarce for the first few weeks and then weren't anymore. Right. So for a few $100, a lot of people saw.
Oh, that's a pretty flower. Is that a bougainvillea?
It's a bougainvillea.
Bougainvillea.
I wonder, is that bougainvillea the same in English? I don't know.
No, it's called, maybe. It's called something else, I think.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite. I love it.
It's a pretty flower.
Yeah.
You should put it in your ear.
I should. I think I will.
I think you could. It's great.
It's a little tight.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah. Or something I wanted to mention. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's also like the weather event they had in North Carolina.
Right.
Which seems very similar to Maui in terms of potential agendas behind the event. Mm-hmm. Because there's all these reports. I mean, they're like taking kids and.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then there's all these reports of like they're trying to buy everyone's land for pennies on the dollar. Oof. And then they're also not getting any help. So like.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you're like months out. I mean, I don't know when that happened. It was some months ago.
That was several months ago.
Yeah. And they haven't done any. Like the federal government has done nothing. Like zero.
Yeah. There's some homeschool channels that Tiff watches and has watched for years, and there was one of the families, or maybe two, are from that area, and they had, they were already, they had a lot of accountability or self-preparing. They were homesteaders. They were into that stuff already. So they had, backup and redundant water and redundant food and gardens and animals and yard and
nice.
What are the not transformers, the
solar panels?
No, it's solar, all that, all that kind of stuff. So they were ready for that kind of thing. But they're talking, where she's, I was listening to one, and the mom was almost guilty that, she was able to still go on YouTube and still talk because they were like 2 weeks at that time, or 3 weeks without power, and most of the town had no power, and there were no generators were anywhere near,
Right.
and like people's food, people didn't have a lot of food storage in general unless you were a homesteader, a farmer, or a prepper.
Of course, yeah.
And then there was, the grocery stores some of them didn't have generators in these small towns.
Well,
and
even a lot of the roads were impassable.
The roads were impassable, right? Yeah.
No, people were people were like applying for FEMA trailers and getting turned down.
Really?
Like, yeah. No, that was pretty wild. I mean, you coming to sit, buddy? Yeah, there was something off of that. Oh yeah, it's just like a lot of, in my opinion, just a lot of wake-up calls.
Yeah.
For people, whether you're here or anywhere else.
Right.
And it's also interesting, it's like it's very much the chicken or the egg kind of question on a lot of that stuff. It's like, are we fulfilling prophecy, or is the events just being precipitated by unnatural means, or both, and is that one and the same?
Right, yeah.
Right, like which is interesting to me. But I really, it's like, I look at the fires, for example, here.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they clear cut these mountains, probably a few hundred years ago, I would imagine. I don't really know, but a long time ago, not recently. So they clear cut these mountains to graze cattle, and they took what was forests and turned them into grass. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. That's what happened. And now, like, instead of having forests, you have, which changes all the weather patterns, right? Like
changes the microbiome of the soil. It changes
everything.
Ecosystem. Yeah.
And makes for a lot less precipitation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see now, like, based on the sort of decisions of man, right, you get then the result at some point of sort of nature, sort of showing you the consequences to some degree.
Here's your
right?
sign.
Like, here's your wake-up call,
Right.
And then it's interesting you were talking about, you look at, we all, when I say we all, not me actually, but, we all make fun of preppers until something like that happens, which, I don't really prescribe to the whole, it's like you could spend the rest of your life prepping and die a prepper, die
people
like...
People have.
People have
been doing that since the 70s, 50s.
I mean, I've literally known people here that were so deep into the, like, conspiracy world, which I understand and don't disagree with probably most of it.
Yeah.
But we're so deep into it, and where it got them in sort of the fear / prepping mode.
Yeah.
Where people here passed away. Yeah. Worrying about the end of the world, basically, or worrying about whatever event, was going to happen, which they are happening and they'll continue to happen.
Every day. Yeah.
Right, every day, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think, because I was in that world for a while, and now, you can find a balance of, like prudence and discernment and basic preparation and self-accountability and self-sustainability and those type of principles, and then you can take it to the extreme, like we're talking about with somebody, and prepare for all these other things, that never end. That the list of imaginary terribles never ends. Like, we're creative beings. Like, we can think of something else terrible that's going to happen that we need to prepare for, and that never ends. So, but I still subscribe to, man, have a garden, grow some of your own food, know where your food, especially like, maybe it's great that RFK is in, that maybe that changes some of the health system and the food and the FDA, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Mm-hmm. At least there's a chance maybe now. Right. It feels like there's a chance perhaps. Mm-hmm. But, knowing where your food's coming from, right? Knowing, what's on it, what's in it, where are the seeds from? You know, there's some freedom in that. You know, and same with animals, chickens. You know, goats, any of that kind of stuff. Having redundant water sources, collecting rainwater. Those are things everybody can do. They can have a garden. Maybe you can't have chickens everywhere if you're in a city or, you know, regulations in neighborhoods, but you can have a garden. You can have an indoor garden if you want. You can collect rainwater most places. I think Eddie was telling me in Cali there's places that are
Colorado maybe
that you can't. It's illegal to collect rainwater.
Yeah. Definitely. There was a few that was like a big thing a few years.
That's wild. Back. But those are all things you can do as a person that wants, you know, freedom. That wants, you know, and that's kind of where I think maybe, you know, some of the Trump stuff for me is kind of where that's where he is. Like, here's your sign. You want, you know, like, hey. You know, he's talked about getting rid of income tax and getting rid of the IRS and the Federal Reserve and all these agencies and stuff. And okay, well, what does that word mean, right? You know, do you want agency or not? You know, like being self-sustainable, doing some of that things, then you don't need to rely on the medical system or the pharmacy or the FDA or you know, but.
And particularly, too, I think, like, you know, I agree, of course, with everything you're saying, but, you know, doing that in community is, like, the best way.
Yeah.
And, you know, and, like, this town has some of that. What's up, buddy? You're hot? Yeah, it's pretty hot. You can, Aniele can take you to the river or the pool if you want, buddy. Or you can go run around the sprinkler.
Mm-hmm. On the sprinkler.
You know, this town has some of that, but I'm really looking forward to doing that in an actual sort of smaller community, like on a piece of land, you know, a little bit more, not in a town, you know, in a like that's
because you get you a lot of that is inherent in the local community, right? On a level, so. And that was like the response for the fires. That's like a perfect illustrative, like in your face, real example of that, right? Yeah. The response of when, you know, 6 months ago, whenever we had that rash of burglaries and the community came together, you know, like that was the local community that was doing that, right? Same here. So that's part of that culture, which is beautiful, right? It's, you know, but so there's like a community like that ties everybody seeking community. That seems like that's a thread throughout it all. And then there are different like ideals about, you know, there's a lot of folks in the local community that don't care where their food's from, really. They don't care if there's chemicals on it, right or wrong. You know, they don't care if, you know, they're buying milk in a bag. You know, when they have a choice and the price point is the same or similar, you know, maybe it's, I don't know what the reasons are, but, you know, there's just, people have different opinions, right? And on what's important priorities, right? So I think, you know, like a community that you're talking about that, you know, we've talked about for a long time, like that's, the cool part of that is like people that have some of those core, you know, next level, you know, alignments values, or beliefs, values, whatever you want to call it, and doing that in community, that's like a special thing.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that life at some point. There was something you touched on. I was having this conversation with my wife the other day. You know, she's from here. She's a lot younger. She's from here. Grew up kind of in Spain, but, you know, is not thinking necessarily along the same lines on everything in terms of, like, you know, hasn't done the research, hasn't, you know, thought through a lot of the things. Like, she just lives her life from a different perspective, as she should. And we were talking the other day about, you know, the fires and some other stuff that's going on in the world, or whatever. And I was just kind of explaining to her what about Ecuador is so comforting in an environment like we're in globally, where like systems and stuff, is breaking down, where you have a country here where the government's never really done all that much ever, right? You have a country where, I was saying this to her, like, prior to Rafael Correa, who like went out of power in 2016, like, blackouts here were common throughout the history of the country up until Correa.
Right.
You didn't have good airports. You had like a couple of airports that really worked, and not. You had roads were paved throughout the country under Correa. Like, that's when the highways were built. That's when the roads were made to be good, etc. You've never really had functioning services here in some ways. You do in some ways you do, in some ways you don't. But you don't have, and so, what I think what I put a lot of, it's something that matters to me. Like, I put weight on it that I think a lot of people don't necessarily consider, or wouldn't necessarily consider unless you've lived in both places and really felt the difference, is, in a place like the U.S., you don't even know your neighbors. You literally, like, I lived on a block in Brooklyn where, like, there was probably, 50 plus, like, building, like, three or four story buildings where, like, I probably, like, intimately knew maybe, like, three or four different, 3 or 4 houses. I, like, really knew the people. And then I, like, to maybe another handful, and that's it. Right, like, you really don't know your neighbors. The community kind of stuff doesn't really exist. Like, I was listening to something. Even like the stuff that back in the day was commonplace is much less so now. Like the bowling, like guys used to go bowling, and at least it gives you some community stuff. Or like maybe women would do like a knitting circle or this or whatever. Like even that you don't really have anymore back home. But anyways, the point is that people have relied on government to solve their problems in places like the U.S. for so long that if that's not there, that's a real shock to the system. That's a real difference, right? Like, if you can't just dial 911 and, like, they come and help you, or you can't say, like, hey, my neighbor's doing something I don't like, there's authorities that are going to, like, step in, or your food supply, or a million other things, that's a massive difference. Whereas here, people just don't think that way. Never have, hopefully never will. In terms of people here, like, when things happen, they already assume the government's basically going to fail in their job, right? And it's not that the government doesn't respond and help. They do. But it's definitely not what you rely on. You rely on the systems, you rely on the communal systems, like you rely on the networks is the right word. The networks of people that, and everyone steps up. I mean, you were talking about the fires when we had fires a couple months ago also, which it's been wild, but, I was coming down from my house one day, and like people were like random people, and you know a lot of them. There's a small town. We're just coming up in taxis with whatever they had to just go fight the fire, and that's just life here. And it's a very different mentality. I think it scares a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Like I think a lot of people is actually what they don't like about this place. Sure. I think it's one of the reasons people leave. Right. For example, and for me, it's like outside of the nature and just the laid back mentality of everybody. It's like with those other two things, it's like one of the things I love the most about this place.
And that's where, that's when you're stuck in the system, in the matrix in the States, and most of the Western world, that's the stuff you're relying on, and partly probably because it does ease your fears, in a way, or your anxiety that I have, I can have at least a baseline faith that, the food that I'm buying out of this grocery store isn't going to kill me. because the FDA is there, right? My money is safe in the bank because the, U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve exist.
FDIC.
If I get cancer and I go to the the oncologist,
He's like,
but right, that's the agency. That's the I don't know, at some level, like, I don't think necessarily that all these things are trying to kill people. I think there are aspects of all those that are very detrimental to health, to financial security, to, civil, obedient, all kinds of stuff. But man, those are those agencies that give people faith, that give people hope, that a little less fear, right? And I think, you mentioned, as some of these systems and things are breaking down in the West, in the United States, it's not just the system. I think it's the faith in those agencies, in those systems, in that, and now that we have, now that there seems to be a consensus that, many people are happy that Trump won. Now, obviously, there's many people that are, the opposite, that hate that Trump won. But it seems like there was, if the votes are real, and there's more people that are more excited and more happy about Trump making a difference. And there seems to be, like, when I talk to folks, there seems to be a different tone in, like, people have more hope. Now, it's interesting because I have a couple of groups of friends that are, that are pretty extreme in their beliefs. They're not very, if you're pro-Trump, you're not anything else to do with Harris, Walz, Biden, and the friends that were pro-Biden, Harris, Trump really is Hitler, and Trump is all these terrible things. So, they have very different perspectives, and I would say that I have friends on both sides that are, I would say, in the matrix still, right? Still deep in the matrix, still, in some cases, some ways, non-player characters in that, right? From both sides. And then there's some that, that are, I would say they generally tend to be more on the right, on the side, on the Republican side of their perspective, that are, much closer to thinking through things the way we've talked about, and questioning, institutions and the way things are, and the American dream, or keeping up with the Joneses, and what's the purpose of life, and that kind of stuff. Then on the left, it's more of the folks that are really deep that I know. They're like having mental problems. Yeah. They're having like trouble, like legitimately having a hard time getting out of bed. Yeah. Like it's so polarizing that I kind of want to laugh, but it's like, but these are a couple of guys I've known since kindergarten. Right. And that we talk all the time, and they're having like real issues, man. Like, it's
wow. Yeah, I mean, it's the way I look at all these things, it's like, it's the distance between beliefs, your belief system, like your beliefs, and truth that has to be bridged now.
That's a great way to look at it.
And so, if you're like fully bought in whatever the TV's telling you at this point, you're so far from the truth.
Right.
I mean, that's a big gap.
Right.
And so as that facade comes down, which is happening, that's going to cause some pretty crazy behavior and some mental breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. And I think we're seeing that all over the place. Like, I think we're seeing that in many ways. And even, even just for myself, like on a personal level, because it's like, I think that what I just said, like, I think is true no matter who you are or like where you're at in that process.
Yeah.
So like even for
It's
me,
a human thing, right?
Right. Even for me, like on a very personal level, where the events that are taking place in the world now are so unsurprising to me. I can't, like, literally, it's not that. I made peace with all that stuff in like 2010, 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Here's what's coming.
Yeah.
Here's, kind of the ideas and the plans and what it could look like. And like, okay, moved to Ecuador, made some changes in my life that I felt at the time made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, just mentally, psychologically, I've believed that the things that are fake were fake for a very long time. So the fact that a lot of them now we're seeing through that is like, for me, it's kind of like finally, like it's like finally we see, what is actually, the man behind the curtain is kind of being revealed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But even on so like that stuff for me is not causing me distress.
Right.
Personally, I actually kind of like it because like I'd like there to be. I kind of like the timelines to be quicker in terms of getting to what I consider
Get out of here.
in terms of what I consider, the next chapter, like on Earth after we're done with that stuff.
Yeah.
So, that stuff. But on a personal level, it's like my own belief systems and the little nooks and crannies and places in myself that I haven't resolved and I haven't made peace with and looked at and dealt with, those are being challenged for me. It's not like, oh no, Trump won or Trump lost or this happened. It's not any of that stuff. It's just like my own but it's the same, like it's the same process.
Right.
It's just like how like how much of that do you have?
Right.
Is kind of the question right now. I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of where things, where you wonder how does that resolve in the United States? Because it seems like there's a lot of folks that seem unhinged.
Yeah.
And now dealing with some of this mental health stuff, like, oof, right? He's not even. I mean, he's not even been sworn in yet. And it's crazy, man. What some of this is happening, and so I don't know. Man, it's I think it's not in a not in a disrespectful way, but it's entertaining.
It's very entertaining.
You know what I mean? Like, not that I'm not entertained by someone else's pain. That's not what I mean.
I can be.
but you know what I mean? Like, it's entertaining. Like, this is all really happening.
I mean, you're not entertained by those Karen videos? Come on.
Oh, dude, I mean, but that's those have never stopped.
Right.
Those have been going on since 2016.
Oh yeah. No, I don't. It has nothing to do with politics necessarily. I mean, it does and it doesn't. Yeah. But it's just like those videos of people freaking out because someone's like not, breaking the rules or not doing what they want.
Right. And you know what? What's changed? We've talked about this too. Like with every president. What have they actually, regardless of who was put in office, selected, elected, whatever you want to call it, what impact has it had on day-to-day life in that lifetime or in that term or even the next 20 years for the people alive?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely trajectories.
There's trajectories, but
I mean, if you took someone in 1920, 30, 40, 50, and you said to them, like, when we fast forward 50 years or we fast forward, 100 years, society's going to look like this.
Sure.
I mean, they'd think you're insane.
Yeah,
There's not any possibility that the belief systems that are currently in place and just the level of government. Like, government, wasn't a big thing. Originally,
come on, like we went to the moon to beat the Russians, right? I mean,
sure we did, but but I mean, just mean in terms of like day-to-day lives. I mean, we went from and again, how much of this is real, how much isn't? They're all stories. I don't know, but we went from a revolution fought ostensibly, at least on the surface in some way, over like a 1% or a 2% tax,
That's what they say.
Right.
Yeah,
And I said that,
right,
but to like, I saw this video the other day where there was a guy fishing in some lake or some ocean, I think it was an ocean, and they got stopped by whoever patrols that stuff, the Coast Guard maybe,
Sure.
or the game warden or something, right?
Yeah.
And they were in a lot of trouble because they had some fillets, some fish fillets in a bag. And they said, no, like we picked these fillets up from a friend's house. But the warden was like, you can't have fish fillets on a boat because we don't know where you got them from. And, so I guess like they had, anyways, it's just, it's indicative of, like, not only would you need a license to fish, on God's green earth, like,
right.
but you would, but if you don't have the right number of fillets in your boat, you could have a big problem. Like, that's quite that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So the trajectory.
Yeah, well, sure, yes.
But I agree with your point in the short, I think really if I could be so rude as to like summarize what I think you're saying is like it's like the control what you can control stuff. And it's like, live your life the best way you can regardless and stop putting your power externally.
Stop giving it away.
Right.
Stop overreacting to things that are going to change so dramatically that don't really seem to.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah. Speaking of the fishing, when I was back in the States, I went fishing in the boundary waters between Minnesota and Canada, and it's a great trip.
Yeah.
You're out in the middle of nowhere. Your cell phone doesn't work. You want to talk about no electromagnetic frequency, any pollution.
That's nice. Some of those pictures looked amazing.
Dude, yeah. But it's true, like on the fillets, like when you catch, there's certain limits on these lakes, and you can only have this many fish in your possession. And how do you know when you have the fillet? Well, you have to keep, by regulation, a 1-inch square of scales on the fillet so that the game warden, the Fish and Wildlife, whoever, I don't remember whose authority is but whichever one questions you can prove that this fish is actually this type of fish.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I can just hear people saying, well, you need that. You don't want overfishing. I'm not even necessarily against that. Like, there's that's a debatable topic of how you should go about those kinds of things. Like but it's just to illustrate the point of like the difference between, where we were at and where we are at. Right.
Yeah. There's another interesting thing up there. So like talking to a bunch of, there's some families that we know that have been up there for, I don't know, 40, 50 years currently, and then the previous generation and generations of family outfitters that work there, and they were, we haven't seen moose in years and years out there. Normally, you'd see moose and other wildlife, small game moose are enormous, and apparently it's kind of the outfitters up there. So the people that host, that have cabins or rentals or that have boats that they rent, like that's the lifeblood of all those small little towns there. Right. There's no other revenue source. There's no business. Like the business is hunting and fishing, and it's regulated, and there's only so much so that blah, blah, blah. But so there's groups up there that are totally against any of that, right? Sure. So they'll try and intentionally grab all, when the permits go live, they'll try and get them all so that other people can't use them and then not use them, and so there's all these shenanigans.
You mean they're against hunting and fishing?
Against, and all that stuff. Well, apparently there was, and again, I didn't vet this truth, but I was told this story from a woman that's been up there for, generations, that she said that there was a wolf issue. There was a wolf, the wolf started populating or whatever, and I guess they got pushback on how many wolves they could kill, and then all of a sudden now it's like the wolves have gotten so out of control that they've taken down all the moose.
Yeah.
What?
It's such a great example of the never-ending, unintended consequences of government anything.
Yeah. Or, and I would take it even a step further. It's of activism. people of activism
but if
in
you
a
don't,
sense.
sorry.
No, just activism or lobbying in a sense that you think you know best for everybody,
Right.
and that. Yeah.
No, totally. But it's like the activism is okay if you don't have the enforcement mechanism of government. It's like I can get together with my boys and we can not hunt together if we're into that.
Sure.
Cool. Like it's but
And
if
maybe it's the lobbying piece.
Yeah.
Right? The lobbying. Right. The lobbying that executes the enforcement.
I mean, there's that famous story in China where it's probably Chairman Mao, I would imagine, or was it before him? I'm not sure. Was there before him? Was he the first?
I don't think he was the first
Communist dictator.
Oh, actually,
I
guess
the revolution was that Mao. I think that was Mao.
I mean, it wasn't like Genghis Khan a dictator?
Yeah. Right, Mongolia. Anyways, I'm gonna show my ignorance on some of this stuff, but I think gosh, I haven't looked at this in many years, but I think when they had the People's Revolution in China, I don't know. I think that was Mao, because I don't know if it was.
Mao was a socialist.
I could be
right?
wrong. Yeah, communist. Like, what's same thing anyway? But yeah, anyways, under some communist Chinese dictator, at the original revolution, when the people, people were in charge. Now, they decided they needed to kill all the birds. I forget why. I think it had something to do with rice production.
Are you sure it's not because they're government spies?
right. So I think what happened, and I'm probably going to butcher this a little bit, but I think what happened was the government said they told everybody you have to grow rice, specifically because they didn't want the diversity, they wanted export. So they said, all right, we're all going to just grow rice. And then I think the birds were doing something to the rice, or there was some issue with the birds. And so they had this campaign to kill all the birds, and they successfully did it. Like, they killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of birds. You can watch a video of it. It's really remarkable. Like, they were making noise and not letting them sleep, and it was, like, crazy. Yeah. So the obvious, the very obvious result of that anyone with, probably my son at 5 years old could have figured out on his own, was that the pests, the birds eat all the insects and all. Yeah. So they got overrun by pests and destroyed everything, and they had a famine. They had like a big famine. A lot of people died. Yeah. And
and that's you talk about you mentioned this earlier with the fires, and that's kind of the same thing when you clear cut organic growth and you replace it with things that are not from here, or grasses, and you don't maintain that right, then there's consequences, right? And that's what's cool about some of this, like even some of the stuff that like Leash is doing at Living Ground, and regenerating the soil and in the right way with what's the word? Not local. What's the word?
Like indigenous?
Indigenous, like indigenous plants and trees and shrubs, and finding
native.
There we go. Yeah, and finding that balance, right? Where's the balance? And you learn some of that stuff, on a micro scale in permaculture and and stuff like that, with how certain shrubs and certain plants grow with certain trees, and the symbiosis. So
it's like it kind of comes down to like, do you know better or does God know better on all this stuff? It's like anywhere that humans think they know better doesn't usually end well.
Oh, it's so gross, man.
Like, there's a very natural order to things. There's a natural way stuff works. It's not always obvious. Right. Sometimes you have to like observe and try and figure it out, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you have to work with that. Yeah. Add value however you're going to add value, but like within that context, as opposed to like, I know how to do this.
Right. And that's the faith and fear. And I think a lot of people resort to, because they're scared. So it gives them a sense of, of comfort, like thinking they're in control.
Right.
Versus having faith that, hey, man, I don't need to know. I don't have to know for sure. I don't know. Like, I think, there's enough signs here from God. There's enough signs here in nature that this is the way it should go, right? Let's do that. Let's reward that. Let's nurture that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, how do things end in like Dubai, you know, like Las Vegas?
I mean, do you see some of those? Like they got motors that are constantly running like pumps funneling sand so that the sand doesn't erode that they built these giant buildings on.
Is that right?
Yeah, like
I mean, don't they have don't they have
in the
ski
ocean.
resorts? I think they have I think they have like a
maybe,
ski resort indoors.
Yeah.
In the desert
Yeah.
in Dubai.
It's wild. Yeah, there's some wild things going on in the. I mean, dude, I just watched Mike Tyson at 58 fight Jake Paul.
Dude, I didn't watch the fight, but I saw a couple. I saw a few clips. It looked to me like it was rigged, like
sure
fully
seems
rigged.
like it.
Yeah.
Sure seems like it, man.
I mean, he's got him and he doesn't throw it.
Dude, and you see his training videos.
Yeah,
I mean, there's two perspectives. I think one is he's 58.
Sure.
You know, he wasn't. If you follow, like I followed Tyson growing up. Like when he came out of prison, he wasn't quite. He wasn't the same
not
guy,
at all.
right?
Not at all.
I mean, when he was younger, like he was abstinent. He was, you know. Do you remember, like
his trainer before his trainer passed, Gamada or something?
Yeah,
Gamada.
but he was like he abstained from sex. He abstained from drugs. He was abstinent for a period of time when he was an animal in the ring.
Yeah.
And then he went to prison and he's knocking up his, you know, his social worker. He knocked her up in prison, you know, like, and he's getting conjugal visits because he's Mike Tyson, you know, and he's getting, and he's in the, I mean, there's photos of him available readily, just cocaine, on his face, so he was an animal in a different way, right?
Yeah.
But then when he came back to boxing, he's even talked, I mean, he's done so many interviews now. He's a 58-year-old pothead, right? He's a 58-year-old pothead, and he has a podcast, and he talks about all this stuff in his own words,
I saw him
right?
do mushrooms on his own podcast with Graham Hancock.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So he's a really introspective guy, but he's on, like he talks about, he's like, hey, when I came back to fight Buster Douglas, it was in Japan. He's like, I didn't train. I didn't train at all.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is taking down Japanese women by the dozen. Like he's telling you that, and then he gets knocked out, right? So my point of all that is, when you have an animal like a beast that is in the ring, like executing at that level with that mentality, that mindset. Right, there's a certain mindset that goes along. All the things he was abstaining from in training and dedication and all that matters too, but there was a mindset. And then when you get knocked out by Buster Douglas, guys don't.
Invincibility goes away.
Guys change, right? It's different, right? You see it in Conor McGregor. You see it in some of these other guys. You see it. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? So there's one perspective is, hey, he's a 58-year-old dude. Mm-hmm. He's not the same guy. Sparring is different than actually getting hit back, right? Is there some of that? But then there's like so much of the other side where you see the training videos and you see the explosion and then you see this fight and you see like him literally pulling punches and him not taking.
He was pulling punches.
And then you question, all right.
Biting his glove.
Right, like that was so obnoxious. That's him just doing that? So like, because you know how much of a mental Mike Tyson is? Yeah. That he's doing that to make, don't do it, Mike, you're going to lose 20 million. You're going to lose 20 million, Mike, don't do it. And then the other side of it, though, is also he's a 58-year-old dude. Is he pulling punches or is his timing, is he telling his body to do it and his body's not doing it? You understand that, is there some element of that, where like,
I understand that a little bit.
Right, well, with basketball, we're talking about it. Yeah.
That's why I'm laughing.
But like you're telling your body, you've done it before and you know what you should do and you just can't, right? Was there some element of that, right? Yeah. Is it kind of like you talked about, is it this or both at the same time? I think maybe it was a little bit of all that,
Mm-hmm. I'll be dunking next week, but
yeah, right.
but I mean, did you? And I don't know if this was true or not, because I don't, it's not stuff I pay attention to. But
yeah,
at least somebody was saying that there was some interesting contractual stuff.
That's what I heard. I saw some leaks.
You saw some, yeah.
But I don't know.
Where it
Like,
seemed like
who can make people can make that up?
Yeah,
you
people
know?
could make. That's why I'm saying. Yeah, so you haven't. Yeah, you don't know.
But I've definitely heard that. I know
Yeah, soon. Big boy.
that NDAs are commonplace.
The what is?
Non-disclosure
NDAs?
on that.
And the Yelly has water.
And again, it goes to another. It kind of ties back into what we were talking about with, institutions and agencies and faith in those and the crumbling of them, because, well, this was a regulated boxing event, professional regulated gambling, like it can't be rigged because it's regulated, and you can't, they can't have this contract because it's regulated and they can't do that, and
Yeah.
or can you?
Right. Yeah, it's the facade crumbling on all levels everywhere.
And you're seeing it. Like, and if you're Jake Paul, man, you're in the club and you're doing what you need to do to keep ascending.
Same with Tyson.
Tyson's doing it for the money,
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the club, sure, but I don't know. I think Jake Paul's in a different level of the club. Like Jake Paul's in an ascending level of the club, and Tyson's just kind of treading water, at this point.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And if you're Jake Paul, even if it's from a business, sports, entertainment, it's prize fighting now. It's not boxing anymore. It's prize fighting. People are paying. People are watching prize fighting. But if you're Jake Paul and his team, dude, of course you're doing this. You can't get knocked out by Mike Tyson. You can't get knocked out by Mike Tyson.
You want to play with toys? I don't have any toys.
I can't get the door.
You can go in there.
No, I can't get the lock. The lock's stuck.
No, Jacob just went in.
Oh.
Go
Really?
try. Go see if
All
it's
right, go
open.
look.
I think so, buddy. Unless I'm seeing things. I don't think so. Here you go.
Yeah.
Go check.
So
See if you
there's
find any toys.
that whole piece now that it's like,
Yeah.
you're not giving up 40 million, and you're not going to risk the gravy train ending by getting knocked out by Mike Tyson for real.
Yeah.
If I was
Yeah,
Jake
I mean,
Paul.
the whole world is turned into WWE,
Yeah.
which again is wonderful because it's like a process for people to just see the truth and just see through the facade.
Yeah.
Because I think it's built on itself and gotten worse over the years and decades and so on and so forth. But really, like, all of these systems are built on falsehoods. They're built on fiction. They're built on non-truths. Just going right back, and this will be controversial, obviously, but I don't ever say anything controversial. So, just the very idea of government. Just the idea of like you're not sovereign. Right. You are giving your control up to an outside entity. Right there, you've lost. You've lost already. That's from my perspective, that's an absurd concept. I mean, the idea that as an adult, like as a human adult, that someone else should have power over you, is absurd. I mean, it's an absurd concept.
Right. And that's kind of where, like, for the longest time, I was more anarchist in my thoughts and wanting to blow all that stuff to blow up. Mm-hmm. Because exactly why you said this man should be sovereign, right? And the older I get, I don't know if I agree, because I think there's so many, like, it would be ugly. It would be really ugly.
You mean uglier than it is?
Yeah. Yeah, because of what we talked about with the people that rely on those agencies and those institutions. And
I mean, well, right. The transition.
The
would
transition
be ugly, but
right?
But that's inevitable. We're seeing it now, whether people want it or not.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. It sure does, doesn't it?
But also that's because it's built on a house of cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether that's the financial system or whether that's any of it.
Prize fighting.
Right. At whatever level you.
They win even after the fight. They're talking about Canelo Did you watch boxing? Like, were you into boxing?
I was, but like way
Back in the day.
Yeah,
back in the day.
I really liked watching Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah, Roy Jones Jr. was amazing. Yeah, growing up in Berlin, we watched boxing, and it was a predominantly Hispanic, community. So the Mexican, they love boxing. We would get together to watch boxing, and it's a big deal. And Canelo is like super popular, and they're talking about, they made a point, again, to ask Jake Paul about maybe you fight Canelo. And I'm like, dude, Canelo's maybe 34, 35, I don't know. Yeah. But his last fight's at 168. These guys, Tyson and Jake Paul, fought at 230 almost.
2-something, yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean, Canelo?
He'd probably whoop him, though. He'd probably whoop Jake Paul.
I don't know, 168? I don't know. Maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
I don't follow.
Maybe 34, maybe he can, maybe he's fast enough to do it, but they're going to fight with 14-ounce gloves. They're going to fight, that was the other thing. They didn't fight with 10-ounce gloves. They fought with 14-ounce gloves, more cushion. So the power is taken away. But, you want to see it. If this is real, if this is any type of real, Jake Paul will fight Usyk, who fought Tyson Fury. This is this is a heavyweight that weighs the same as Jake Paul, that will eat him alive, because he's a real boxer, and he's as big, and he's, he might be 30, in his mid-30s as well, but closer in age. Like, that's how if Paul fights guys like that, then you can then you can at least lean towards maybe it's not all rigged. Maybe there's a chance that it's less rigged. But if you keep, you fight Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz
UFC guys.
He's fighting UFC guys. He fought Tommy Fury, Tyson's cousin or little brother, or, half brother or something. He's fighting those guys. He's knocking out like that kind of guy. I don't know, man. It was still entertaining. It was. I'll tell you what, man. There was
Did you stay up?
The two chicks. I did stay up. Yeah, there were two chicks fought before as the co-main event.
Oh, I can't watch that.
Dude, it was awesome. They brawled. Dude, brawled.
Turns my stomach.
No, it was something. It was at least like, hey, this is not fixed. For whatever that's worth.
A lot of times the undercard fights.
This was not
even
fixed.
Back in the day were the better fights a lot of times. Especially the lighter fighters tend to have better fights as well.
Yeah. They're more action.
Yeah, they're not hugging all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I saw that Evander Holyfield came into Tyson's locker room before the event to wish him well.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't see that.
Apparently he's gotten over his ear.
Yeah, I saw him and Lennox Lewis were on the pregame.
Yeah, both of them went in.
Right. Okay, it was like whoever was the main commentator, and they had Andre Miller he was an ex-boxer, and then Lewis and Holyfield for a bit, and Holyfield's his earpiece didn't work, so then Lennox Lewis is like trying to yell to him to get any communication, but Holyfield seemed like respectful, and they've done stuff. Him and Tyson, they've done like commercials where, remember it was a popular commercial, maybe 10, 15, 12 years ago, where Tyson's, it's like, he's like in an ugly Christmas sweater, and he's giving Holyfield a present. And he opens it up, and he's like, "What? What is this?" And it's like a edible ear, just dumb stuff like that. So they're doing stuff like that. But Lennox Lewis, man, he was all about like not giving Tyson any respect. Yeah. I beat him. I knocked him out. I had no respect.
He did.
Right.
Tyson, in hindsight, was pretty much washed at that point. But
yeah, buddy.
The what ifs of sports. Tyson. Before Customato, I think, before he passed away, and then Tyson went to jail. It was exciting.
Yeah.
Then some people say he never fought anybody. Like when he actually fought people, he got smoked, but he was older.
Yeah, I don't know. He was older. It was different circumstances. Nobody wanted to fight him.
Right. And also, I don't know that there was, like, the sport was,
right.
It wasn't.
I mean, he was fighting the guys that were there.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah,
He wasn't
I mean,
dodging
yeah.
people. I didn't follow it like that.
Tyson
but-
wasn't dodging anybody.
No, he was. I mean, it was wild to watch him back in the day. It's still one of the funnest. Like, you want to watch like his knockouts there.
Oh, dude, just looking at his eyes, like when you're just looking at him at the face-off,
Yeah, it's terrifying.
you know, yeah, it's terrifying. Right.
Big like 280-pound corn-fed white dudes. Like
Yeah.
didn't go well.
Right.
What was
yeah.
it? Danny something.
Oh, it was.
It was one of them.
Might have been. Yeah, I don't remember. Who was the last guy though? It was
Even on Tyson's like comeback,
Oh, he was
he
destroying those
destroyed
guys.
a few guys.
Yeah.
Before,
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
nope, they're not doing much boxing in Ecuador.
There's not much boxing. There's some MMA.
There's cockfights.
There's cockfights. Yeah. They're proud of that. Yeah. I haven't gone. Have you ever gone to one?
No.
I've not gone to
No.
one. It's a big deal here. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I would
Amongst a
probably
certain subset of folks, but yeah.
Dude, it's a lot. Dude,
Yeah.
it was a lot of folk. I don't know if it was a subset. I think it was kind of like a mainstream. Like there's a couple of events where like all the who's who of a small town were there.
I mean,
in
there's
their
a purse
you know,
obviously. Obviously.
dress
so-
clothes and
Yeah.
taking their wives out, you know.
I mean, they had, I
Playing
think,
footsie with me?
I think they had bullfighting here not that long ago. I don't know when they stopped that, but I think they did at one point.
If you're enjoying the content, like the content, subscribe to the channel if you're not.
So what were you going for?
Well, no, I was just going to acknowledge all the well wishes and emails we've gotten for Carl. So he's still in Canada. He is recovering. He's going through some different therapies and treatments to get his health back, and that's still an ongoing process. Seems like the trajectory is good. It's going in the right direction. He's still got a relatively long road to hoe, but I think he's making hay, and he's doing what he needs to do to get his health back. So keep sending those prayers. Thank you. He wanted us to share that he is grateful for all the comments and communications we've received, wishing him well. So please continue to do so, and maybe he'll be back on here one day. So until then,
See you next time.
see you next time. Ciao, guys.
2-0. Either one.
Did you go 0-2?
Yeah, I lost to the average by 7. And I lost to the guy I was playing by like 20.
Huh? Yeah, you can't do
I'm
that
in
again.
second place.
Dude, Higgins is. That's why I told you, man. Higgins is like
Oh
a
yeah,
legit,
No,
like wide receiver.
I
one.
like Higgins. I like.
I mean,
Higgins.
it just
I
sucks
like,
now
I like
that-
his talent, and I like his situation.
Thing though now is that with the Bengals losing again,
Right, but he's playing for a contract, so that doesn't matter.
yeah, he's getting a contract.
And
He's-
Burrow's young. It's not like it's not like Burrow's, like. Perdón, son limpios. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's just hope they don't. They need a win.
Not really. I mean, what are they gonna do? Like shut down Burrow? I mean,
No, I mean they don't care anymore.
Yeah, but so what? It's still NFL football, and Higgins is playing for a contract.
Nah, Higgins getting a contract, dude.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, the better he plays down the stretch, like, every catch is dollar signs for him right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like Garrett.
Estamos grabando cuando quiera.
Okay.
Empieza.
Garrett Wilson is a more of a concern with the
You
Jets.
think? You think Rodgers is gonna quit?
He could.
He wants to come back next year.
Yeah.
You can't quit on him now if he wants to come back.
No,
If he's going to retire, it's a different story.
Yeah, but he could get. I mean,
You can get hurt.
he can get hurt.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like, which he has a couple of times. He looks. He looks like I do
I haven't
playing
watched.
basketball at
I
the
haven't
same
watched.
age as him playing.
I haven't watched any. I didn't watch any of the games Sunday.
It's bad.
The whole offense or Rodgers?
I mean, just his lack of mobility is striking.
I mean, he was never super
Rodgers?
mobile. Nah, last
He's a
few
runner.
years.
Oh, the last few years, yeah.
Yeah.
But but now he's to the point where he's like Drew Bledsoe. Like he's like, it's bad. Like he can't move. He really can't move.
Ooh.
And they're all just dink and dunk. Everything they do is just dink and dunk. Like they don't.
Because the line, or because
the line's bad.
The line's bad.
The line is not good.
And they can't run the ball.
Well.
Right. So that's just.
And so he's, it's all, and he doesn't have he can't move either. So it's a lot of little 8-yard anticipation throws that are it's not good. It's not good.
I mean, does he have no touch left either?
I mean, his touch looks fine. He throws the ball reasonably fine. I mean, kind of looks like he always did that way. He doesn't look bad that way. But the difference is he doesn't have a lot of time. He can't move. And he does, I don't know. I don't know. It should be better than it is even with all that. With his weapons.
I mean, what I read I didn't watch, but what I read on Twitter is last couple games, it's not just the offense, it's the whole team. The defense should be way better.
Oh, the defense seems like they've quit. Yeah,
they quit.
They seem like they've quit the last 2-3 weeks. Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, they lost to, who'd they lose to the other day? They got blown out by the Cardinals the week before, and then lost to the Colts.
To the Colts with Anthony Richardson off of his 2-game benching.
Right, they should eat against that offense. That defense should eat against that offense.
Yep.
Coming off a blowout loss to a not very good team.
Cardinals? Yeah. Cardinals aren't playing good.
They're playing good, but they're not, they're playing above their weight. Right. They're punching above their weight. Yeah, maybe not. The NFL's there's so much parity.
I mean, if Kyler plays like this, Kyler's playing good football.
I can't say I really watched them a lot, but
I watched the Jets game.
But their roster's not great.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the roster's not good.
Certainly not defensively. The roster's not.
No.
Not really
defense
good.
is playing. Again, the defense is probably playing above their weight.
That's Gannon. Jonathan Gannon came over
Coach
from Philly, who I didn't like at all, but.
I mean, Philly's playing some good D now.
Yeah, they're playing really well.
Offense still isn't totally clicking.
But I'd like to see. I still don't when I look at. I don't think the upside defensively for Philly is there. It's they can look dominant against crappy offenses.
You mean schematically? Because the talent's there for.
Oh, the talent, bro. They should be
upside.
One of the best in the league.
Yeah, I mean,
they might be the best.
They've been probably playing the best in the league.
Yeah, but they've gone against no one except for Washington, and I think they've slowed down as well. But
Washington slowed down.
I think so. Yeah. But no, but when I watch, a team that has the possibility of being dominant defensively, Pittsburgh, even Baltimore, that hasn't been good, but you can see they have that. They have that.
Did you watch last night? Or
last night?
Today, no. Tuesday. The Chargers game. Chargers. Who did they play?
I watched some of the Chargers game. Who did they play?
Oh, Chargers Houston.
No. It was Dallas Houston.
Oh, it was Dallas Houston. Who did the Chargers play? Oh, the Chargers played the Bengals on Sunday night.
That's right. No,
did you watch that?
Maybe the first quarter and I fell asleep. Something like that.
Is the Chargers defense legit or no?
They're good. I mean, they're good. I don't know them. I haven't watched them enough to really.
And then what's the other?
I mean, Detroit's good.
Defense.
Yeah, Broncos. Right. That's another one. Denver. When Denver has the possibility of it doesn't matter who they go against, they're gonna fuck you up. Denver's defense, Philly doesn't have that, in my opinion. Philly doesn't have that. They're getting to the point now where they're sound. So as long as so if you don't really know how to read a zone very well, and you don't really understand the intricacies of who's open when, we can look great. But you go against them. You go against a guy that knows what he's doing on offense, they're gonna pick it apart. They're still 10 yards off the ball. They're still predominantly almost all zone defense.
Right.
They still don't blitz a ton.
Gosh.
They're not doing anything exotic really.
Yeah, with that talent, they could play man.
Yeah.
And blitz like crazy.
Just blitz the lights out of everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And that's what I would do permanently. No matter
and
what,
if you give up, you're going to give up a couple big plays.
Yeah, of course. That's all right.
Yeah, and you're probably going to
get a lot of turnovers.
Quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, with the talent we have, rushing the passer, you add in exotic looks and all out blitzes, that gets nasty real quick.
Right.
Anyways.
Well, you got to be excited.
Football continue. Oh, I'm so excited.
You should be.
I am. Just like I just can't wait for the next.
Eagles are what?
They got 2 losses.
8-2. 8-2, and they.
You know what happens every year? They play
Somebody
more
wins the Super Bowl?
sports. That's right.
Yeah,
No.
it's great.
Season will end. It'll start again.
Yeah, you know what happens
There'll
every
be
morning?
a lot of concussions.
You know what happens every morning?
A lot
Sun
of years.
comes up.
That's right. A
You
lot.
know what happens every night?
What
Sun goes down.
That is kind of
The
exciting.
moon comes
though,
up.
actually. But
Every
yeah.
day. It's
Yeah.
just tomorrow. Guess what?
Yeah.
Sun comes up.
But that's like a natural cycle.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a natural cycle for the human experience. It's just changed over
Definitely
time.
not.
You know what I
Definitely
mean,
not.
why can't it be?
I mean, it's just it isn't.
I mean, I don't know, man. It was gladiators before that, and before that, what were they doing?
They were all control systems as far back as we have any known history of.
Did you feel controlled by the NFL?
A little bit.
Why?
It takes my time and energy. It's a distraction.
From doing what?
Going out with my kids or just doing something more spiritual or more nature based. There's times where I could go out or I could watch football, and I watch football sometimes. And then it's not fun. It's really not fun. It's okay. It's like a way to lose a day. That's basically what it is.
I don't think it's a way to lose a day.
It is.
I think sometimes your system needs some balance.
It's not balance.
It is balance.
Balance would be like a day in nature. That's balance.
No, but you get that every day.
I don't.
Yeah, you
I
do.
don't get enough of that.
Yes, you do. Every day. You get that more than football, by far. And you get way more time with your kids than football, by far.
I don't get a lot. I don't get full days in nature almost hardly ever.
You don't get when do you get full days of football?
A lot of Sundays.
Do you? No, you do not. Shut, you liar.
I'm not lying at all.
You're a liar.
Last year I wasn't doing that, but this year I have.
You've been doing it this year?
Yeah, I've been watching.
That's because you're playing fantasy football for big money. High stakes.
That's pretty much why.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's the truth.
Your team's doing good though, right? Yeah.
Team's doing. It's very exciting.
You made some nice trades.
Yeah, most of them were pretty good.
Yeah.
What where are we at in crypto these days? I haven't had that conversation with you in a while.
Crypto, I mean, we're here. This is the bull cycle we've been waiting for, I think.
Yeah.
The global liquidity trend is still the end of 25, first quarter of 26. That should be.
Yeah, it seems like a good moment right now.
Seems, and that's where, and we could talk about some of this if we have time today, but, people that, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about, different things about politics in the States and Trump this and Trump that, and some he's a savior and some he's ushering in the beast system and some he's, you name it. There's like a narrative for it, but one of them is, the crypto stuff and, stuff like we've talked about in the past where we missed the first big move in Bitcoin because, we see where the end game, can be for cryptographic assets in the sense that everything then is on the blockchain and then, full control, right? So in that system of control, and then the central bank digital currencies as a country is, world reserve status is being questioned and all that stuff. And then, the ushering in and all of a sudden there's all this support from the Trump administration for crypto and people are like, oh, that's just so that, that's part of the system. But I think a lot of it is, stuff we've talked about in the past in regard to, that he is playing a role and, you have a choice, but he's kind of making it where it's, here's your sign in a way.
Right.
Here's your sign.
And the whole thing with Gensler, and he also did. he also did specifically in a speech say he will never allow a CBDC.
He did say that,
Mm-hmm.
which, yeah, whether I don't necessarily think that he can
Whether
do that.
you buy it or not is different, but he hasn't been one of those politicians that's just randomly said.
He says a lot of random shit. Yeah, lots of random shit. I mean, that's kind of what he does, is he says a lot of random
I don't mean
off-the-cuff stuff.
I don't mean random stuff that doesn't matter, but I mean like policy stuff.
Well, it's not a policy.
Yeah, it is.
What?
To not allow the United States to have a CBDC.
But they already do.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of irrelevant because that's that's not how it's meant in terms of some behind the scenes.
I think that just could be, we're just not there in the timeline. He knows that.
Sure. Yeah.
But the point I was making is that I think here's your sign, like people, if you think about what the stock market and what people that have just been nailed with inflation in the States, and how do you beat inflation? Oh, you invest. Oh, you hear every financial advisor in the world tell you the same advice, right? Mm-hmm. Invest in the index funds, and you beat the market, and the market goes up 10% every year, and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And the part most people don't really comprehend, because it's complicated, is how much is your return greater than inflation? Right, and that's really your true, wealth, quote unquote, building, mm-hmm. Potential or result, and crypto, as you're coming into this global trend, the global liquidity trend, you're seeing markets, you're seeing the trend where risk on assets are back. Mm. That's the consensus, it seems. So when you you can go into some, less volatile assets, and you have a lower return. Then you go into some higher volatility assets, like, individual stocks, and you have a higher return than a lower volatility that might be an index fund, right? That's a risk-on asset, right? Well, so the individual, it's just kind of leverage off of each other, right? And then crypto is leverage. Again, it's not. Back in the day, I think we had this thought, or people did, that crypto would be decorrelated, right. From the stock market. And now I don't, up until this point, we have seen it's not, right? It's not. It's a leverage on the stock market.
Yeah,
so,
which is really interesting.
So to me, that's kind of like, here's your sign, right? Trump's talking about. So if you believe Trump isn't evil and is really trying to give people a choice and give people, but still make it so obvious, like, here's your sign, you could make the argument that he's doing that with crypto, and a way for an average person to potentially make a return that's leverage on the stock market that's going to outpace inflation over this period of time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's a great point. Yeah. All right, let's do this.
Are you ready?
No.
You're not ready.
Anyway.
You look like you're going to fall asleep.
All right.
The boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. I don't remember the rest of it.
Yeah, what is it? Everyone thought it was like wrapped up like a douche. But it's not.
Right. What is it?
It's not. It's
isn't.
Revved up like something, or I don't remember. It has nothing to do with a douche.
Oh,
it's not. It's
I
wrapped
gotta
up
know.
like a douche.
It is not. It is not wrapped up like a. Let's see. I came up fast. Stop your face. Boys are back in. Guess who just got back today? Them wild-eyed boys that had been away. Haven't changed, had much to say. But man,
Jojo,
I still think them cats are crazy.
What's in your mouth, dude? Oh, okay.
They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. Told them you were living downtown, driving all those old men crazy. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town.
It's like a 7-minute song.
All right, where's the part though? Man, I said, I tell you, she was cool, she was red hot. I mean, she was steaming. No. But if that chick don't know, forget her.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. The drink will flow and blood will spill, and the boys just want to fight, you better let them. I don't know, man. I don't see the douche.
Because it's not douche. It's like, I think it's revved up, like something.
Is it this song?
I think so.
I don't see it in the lyrics.
Oh, maybe it's not that song.
I don't think it's the song.
It's Blinded by the Light.
Blinded. Yes, it is that. See, different song. So I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I wonder why I associated those. That's funny.
It is funny. Because the boys are back in town.
Yeah.
Blinded by the light. Let's do this.
Very happy that you're excited.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Ready?
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome back to the Ecuador Insider Podcast. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel here. For real estate videos, click here. For content you're gonna absolutely love, right here. And to find out how these crazy guys got to Ecuador, click right here.